it wouldn't be a BS sports episode. It wouldn't be me if we didn't talk about the team that I like, the team that I support, and that is, of course, the Detroit Pistons. So, just looking at the series here, you know, game one, frankly, I'll just be honest. I did not watch this game. I was not in a place where I could. I watched about the first half of it, and then I had to get going, so I didn't watch the game. I gotta tell you, uh, you look at the box score of game one, you're like, mm, okay, Tobias Harris had a nice game, I guess. You know, uh, you know, that Cade had a decent game, but that's only if you look at the box score. The story of game one was a 21-0 run that led to the Knicks' victory. I, Look, I understand that in basketball there is an element of luck. Sometimes you get open looks, shots just don't go down, you don't get the bounce, rebounds end up weird places, ball bounces off your shoulder, off your foot. I don't know. 21 nothing. That to me, that is unforgivable. that you can't give 3 unanswered touchdowns up in basketball. You can't do it. And so they lose game one, and that set forward for me at least the sense of, okay, are we maybe just sort of in over our head? Are the Pistons just not experienced enough to be able to close out these games against the veterans of the Knicks, against Cat, against Brunson and Hart and all them? And then game two happened. And suddenly the story to me completely shifted. It went from, okay, in a sense, even if you go back to the regular season, the Pistons were due to lose a game to the Knicks. They hadn't lost a game to the Knicks since like November. They were due, especially in MSG, especially in a playoff environment, sold out crowd. Understand. In game two, I know the final score is only a 6-point lead. The Pistons dog walked the Knicks. They were in control of this game 2/3 out of it. Even if you want to say, oh, well, in a minute left, it was a tie game. There was not really, in my mind at least, a sense that we were just going to, die, basically. That we were just going to go out there and not make any baskets. We're not going to draw any. No, we just, in the clutch moments, Dennis Schroeder had probably the biggest three in his Pistons career, albeit a short Pistons career. But the story of the game was one Cade Cunningham, who apparently took his first game personally, because he was like, you know what? Nobody else is going to be able to score. I'll do it myself. 33 points. He was a +5 player on the floor. He had 42 minutes on the night. He was basically there the whole time. Shot 52% from the field. Only 25% from three, but he took 4 threes. He made just one. He was just getting to the basket. And I think Cade Cunningham identified himself in this way as the anti-Jalen Brunson. All right? Jalen Brunson. Now, I have defended Jalen Brunson. I really like Jalen Brunson. As a player, I like his attitude. I like the way he carries himself. However, after watching especially game two, I've come away with this. Jalen, buddy, you are a far better player than you're giving yourself credit if you have to draw fouls in order to get Asar Thompson off of you so that you could start scoring, and or jumping into defenders and being like, oh, they got the ball up somehow in the air, and oh, well, I was shooting a 3, so I get 3 free throws. Like, dude, you are so much better than that as a player. Like, why are you doing this? And then I stop and think, well, what happened in that second half? The game was left on his shoulders, and he had to score one way or the other. Why was the game left on his shoulders? Well, let's take a look, shall we? Karl Anthony Towns, did you even play in the second half? Josh Hart, 10 points with 40 minutes played. Buddy, were you even on the court? Evidently not. You were a -5 player. OG Anunoby, same story. Anunoby, same story. Mikal Bridges, pretty good first half, and then again, don't know where he went. He just disappeared. He's like a ghost. So yeah, he drops 37 points, but it's empty calories because his team was down for most of it, and nobody else on the Knicks could score. So yeah, I get it. They're playing this ISO strategy where, look, how many assists did he have? 7. 7 assists on the night. 37 points, 7 assists. And I can't imagine most of those were in the second half. I would be shocked if that was the case. But Karl-Anthony Towns, 0 points in the second half. And I think he said in an interview, something along the lines of like, this was the strategy, essentially. I can't control what the game plan is. Like, admitting, essentially, that the strategy that the genius Coach Thibodeau was basically, Jalen, help us out. Jalen, play hero ball. Play ISO hero ball. Just start heaving shots up. Just start drawing fouls. Get Asar Thompson out of here because clearly he's too good defensively for us to be able to score. And I guess that was what they wanted to do. It didn't work. And I got to say, usually I don't really pay attention to any given thing that, say, a coach is saying in a press conference or even, to some extent, a player. When Thibodeau decided on the post game to say, well, we just didn't like how it was officiated. It just, why is it that Cade's getting all the calls? And like, hold on a second. All right. Total team fouls, the Pistons had more than the Knicks. So there's that. So they weren't not calling fouls on us. The difference was in the free throws. Now, here's the thing. All right. When you have players who off the ball are flailing around like dolphins out of the, out of the aquatic exhibit, then yeah, you're probably not going to get a lot of shooting fouls. The only way you're going to get a shooting foul is, get this, when you get fouled in the act of shooting. The other problem is the guys that are getting fouled in the act of shooting are jumping into it. So those are not always going to get called. It's not like, for example, Cade Cunningham driving to the paint, getting on a defender, heaving up a layup, or trying to get a hook shot and drawing contact and getting to the free throw line. I can't believe that I have to explain this to ostensibly a professional basketball coach, but this is the reality of how the game works. You're not going to get a lot of free throws because your guys are, barely touched by Paul Reed and they fly 30 feet into the seats. It's not going to happen. And furthermore, to be complaining about that sort of thing in a press conference, oh, you're playing a dangerous game. Oh, you're playing a dangerous game. What that tells me is coach sees the writing on the wall that this doesn't look good. All right. That the way that the Pistons play, it seems to aim right at that Achilles heel of the Knicks, which is, for one, they don't have a whole lot of depth outside of their starters, which is why they play their starters so high. But because they play their starters so high, right, so high of minutes, those guys get exhausted. Those guys get cooked, all right? And look, they were still playing well. I'm not saying that they just suddenly lost the ability to play basketball. But again, Karl-Anthony Towns never got the basketball. OG Anunoby barely played offensively. Josh Hart barely got much going. Despite 40-plus minutes for both of those guys, they had just 10 points because the offense was all catered towards Jalen Brunson. Meanwhile, you have guys like Miles McBride, got just 13 minutes. Mitchell Robinson, just 20 minutes. I'm not saying these guys are your savior necessarily, but it's one thing to have, I don't know. It's one thing to have your superstars and want to put your best players in, like in aggregate. Obviously, Karl-Anthony Towns is in aggregate a better player than Mitchell Robinson or Miles McBride. Obviously, nobody's disputing that. But in the moment, you have to adjust. Let me give you an example. On the other end, Tim Hardaway Jr. had a terrible game. He didn't make a single shot. He had no points. He was a negative player. He really didn't do much. So what happened? In the final few minutes of the game, did we have Tim Hardaway Jr. out there because he's a starter? No. We had Dennis Schroeder, who was a depth guy, who was traded for at the deadline and brought in as another piece in the back end to assist us. I mean, we only had 2 guys play more than 40 minutes, and that was Kate Cunningham, who's the leader of the team and the best player on the team, and the vet, Tobias Harris, who had a decent night himself, a double-double. So Coach is going to have to make some adjustments, Coach Tibbs, but it feels like the momentum has swung in favor of Detroit. Because right now, look, you're going to have 2 games in Detroit. We could go back to New York, and it could be 3-1 Detroit. And I would not be shocked if that was the case. And once again, it kind of goes back to what I said last week. Why is it that Vegas and a lot of the analysts just instinctively, reflexively were like, oh, well, the Knicks are just going to win the series? Are you sure about that? I mean, like, this is a Knicks team who is coached dubiously. I don't know if Coach Tibbs is the guy for New York. Doesn't have a whole lot of depth and refuses to use any depth that it does have because of the way that Coach Tibbs coaches them. And this is a Pistons team that, frankly, has dog-walked the Knicks all season long. And if you want to say, oh, regular season doesn't matter. Why do they play the games? Why do they play the games if the regular season doesn't matter? All I've seen all year is Knicks play the Pistons. Knicks do not play well. And you could say, well, they didn't have such and such players. They didn't have, okay, fine. I understand that you're not getting the best every single time. But we're giving our best all the time. And they're not giving their best all of the time. That is a culture shift. That is you're not playing for love of the game. You're playing for, oh, well, we'll hold off. We'll wait until the playoffs and then we'll try. Doesn't work that way most of the time. All right. You don't just flip a switch usually. You have to be really, really good to do that. And I don't think the Knicks are really, really good enough to do that. And by the way, when they played other teams that were above 500, that were better than them, they lost. And the Pistons, as far as I'm concerned, they might maybe not be that much different. So, look, we could come back next week. It could be 3-1 Knicks. They could body slam us in the LCA. I don't know. But especially if the Pistons win on Thursday, you might as well just start, getting the closing time theme playing in MSG, because that to me would be one. Obviously, it'd be one nail closer to the final nail in the coffin. But especially if it's another game like this where the Knicks are getting out-toughed, they're getting out-rebounded, they're just getting out-physicaled, and Coach Thibodeau's answer is, why aren't we getting the calls? Why aren't we going to the line? Coach your players differently, and maybe you'd be able to go to the free throw line. I don't know. That is, as they say in the business, that is a YP, not an MP. Hi, it's me again. If you enjoyed what you just saw, hit the like and subscribe button. We do live shows every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Hope to see you there.